In a small village, there lived a young man named Karan. He was different from the other boys in his village. While they dreamed of becoming farmers, traders, or craftsmen, Karan dreamed of something much bigger. He wanted to become a great wrestler, someone who would bring pride not just to his family, but to his entire village. He had no special training, no expensive equipment, only a heart full of determination and hands hardened by hard work. Every morning, before the sun rose, he would wake up, tie his wrestling belt tightly around his waist, and train tirelessly. He lifted heavy stones, sprinted along the riverbanks, and practiced wrestling moves against tree trunks. The villagers often laughed at him. "Karan, why waste your time? You are just a village boy," they would say. But Karan paid no attention. He believed that hard work could defeat destiny. One day, Karan heard about a wrestling competition in the city. It was his chance to prove himself. With nothing but a small bag of clothes and a heart full of dreams, he set off for the tournament. The city was unlike anything he had ever seen. Tall buildings, wide streets, and hundreds of people buzzing with energy. The wrestling arena was massive, filled with experienced fighters. When his name was called for his first match, Karan stepped onto the mat, feeling a mix of excitement and fear. He faced a strong, well-trained opponent who had been wrestling for years. The match began. Karan gave it everything he had, but within minutes he was thrown to the ground. The referee counted to 3. He had lost. The crowd barely noticed him. No one cheered for him. As he walked away, bruised and exhausted, doubt crept into his mind. Maybe I was foolish to think I could do this, he thought. But deep inside, another voice whispered, "This is just the beginning." Determined to prove himself, Karan refused to quit. He trained even harder. He woke up earlier, pushed himself beyond his limits, and returned to the city for another competition. But fate was cruel. He lost again, and again, and again. People mocked him. "Go back to your village," they said. "You don't belong here." Even his own family began to question his decisions. His father, a hard-working farmer, sighed one evening and said, "Karan, wrestling is not your fate. Come back and work in the fields." Karan listened in silence, but his heart refused to give up. He knew that failure was painful, but quitting was not an option. One evening, after another defeat, Karan sat outside the wrestling arena, exhausted and lost in thought. An old man, wrapped in a simple shawl, watched him from a distance. He was Guru Pratap, a legendary wrestling coach who had trained many champions. The old man approached Karan and asked, "Why do you look so defeated, boy?" Karan sighed. "I train every day, yet I keep failing. Maybe I am not meant for this." Guru Pratap chuckled. "Do you know how iron becomes steel?" Karan shook his head. "The more fire it faces, the stronger it gets. You have the strength, but you lack the technique. Let me teach you." And so, under Guru Pratap's guidance, Karan began training differently. He learned balance, patience, and strategy. He practiced day and night, refining his skills, enduring more failures, more pain, and more doubts. But this time, he was no longer afraid of failing. After years of relentless training, Karan entered the biggest wrestling tournament in the region. But this time, he was different. He wasn't just a competitor, he was a warrior. He faced the same fighters who had once defeated him, but now he was stronger, wiser, and more determined. Match after match, he crushed his opponents, shocking the crowd. Finally, he reached the championship round. His opponent was the reigning champion, a fighter who had never been defeated. The match was fierce. Karan was knocked down several times, but each time, he got back up. Sweat dripped from his face, his muscles ached, but he refused to surrender. And then, in one final, breathtaking moment, he executed a perfect move, lifting his opponent and slamming him onto the mat. The referee counted to 3. Karan had won. The crowd erupted in cheers. His name echoed through the arena. The same people who once mocked him now celebrated him. Tears filled Karan's eyes. It wasn't just a trophy he had won. It was proof that no failure is final unless you give up. When Karan returned to his village, he was no longer just a dreamer. He was a legend. People who once doubted him now told his story to their children. He had learned the greatest lesson of all.